We're getting a divorce today. Leave this house right away, my husband said as soon as he entered the door after arriving home from a business trip for the first time in 2 months. I never thought he would return with his partner. His partner sat down confidently on the couch while I was too surprised to speak. With a chin gesture, my spouse seemed to be trying to get me to leave the house quickly. I wouldn't let it, even though he and his partner looked anxious to get rid of me, the annoyance. When I regained my calm, I firmly said, "What? However, this is my home, right?" They didn't know that their demise would be terrible, but they appeared content, daydreaming of a life of luxury that was out of reach. Olivia Robinson is my name. I fell in love with a senior coworker named Eric when I left university and began working for a firm. I was captivated to his mature appeal since he was kind and taught me when I was just starting out. 6 months after we met, Eric admitted that he felt the same way about me. We quickly began dating, and everything went well in our union. Many, nonetheless, thought he was beautiful. 2 years into my work, I became aware of this when Carrie Cooper, a new hire, came on board. Eric took on the role of her trainer, and their intimacy while training felt remarkably close. Eric was unaffected by Carrie's attractiveness and tiny stature, which appeals to males. I was hurt by how intimate their connection seemed, and I was envious. It was around that period that Eric unexpectedly asked me to marry him. The proposal deeply affected me since I felt like I was going to be left behind. I happily accepted his proposal, and our marriage was consummated. I began my life with the man I loved when I was 26. It was not, however, the start of bliss. Rather than the luxurious life of a newlywed that I had imagined, I was struck with harsh reality. My first shock as a married woman was getting to know my husband's family. I was worried about their character, but as soon as I saw them, I was shocked and said, "What? Why is the president present?" It transpired that our company's president was Eric's father. The fact that Eric was the president's son appeared to be kept a secret within the organization. This was something I was genuinely astonished to learn at the moment. I apologize for the silence, but I want to succeed in taking over the business on my own terms, independent of my parents' influence. I kept it a secret for that reason. Really? Olivia, are you truly cool with me getting married then? Because it's you. Believe me. Eric's remarks were comforting even if the abrupt discovery had left me confused. In contrast to his rigidly professional manner, President Colin was really kind and made me feel at ease. My son will become busier from now on. During such times, having someone warm like Olivia around will help him perform better. I'm counting on you. As I acknowledged Eric's greatness once more, I nodded vigorously. What surprised me most was the immense financial power of my in-laws. Mr. Colin even provided a residence for us. I was simply astonished by the difference in our living environment. My father is wonderful. I'll strive to become a great president like him. Inspired by Eric's positive attitude, I decided to give my all as his wife. Ultimately, through discussions with Eric, I decided to quit my job and dedicate myself to our home. In fact, I wanted to continue working for a while longer, but Eric emphasized the importance of household responsibilities and expressed his wish for support so he could concentrate on his work, to which I agreed. It's a bit disappointing to leave my job, but since Eric is working hard, I can't complain. As expected, after I quit my job, Eric's return home became noticeably later. He seemed to be handling much more work than before. It was not uncommon for him to spend nights at the office. Despite being married for only 2 months, I hardly had any time with my husband. I felt lonelier in our home together than I did when I was single. I understand you're busy, but I wish you would pay a bit more attention to our home life. I often subtly expressed my loneliness, but my words never seemed to reach Eric. He was passionate about his work and focused on honing his skills. "There will come a time when we have children, and I won't be able to dedicate myself to work like this. It might be hard on you now, but this is the time I need to work hard. If it was for the sake of our future life together, I had no choice but to endure." However, as time passed, the situation gradually began to change. When Eric came home late at night, he showed no interest in whether I was awake or not. "Welcome home. Should I warm up the food? Let's eat, you must be hungry. I made your favorite dish. Ah, I grabbed something at the deli on my way home. I'm too tired, so I'm going to sleep now." Eric didn't make eye contact and went straight to bed. In the morning, he slept until the last minute and rushed out of the house without looking at the breakfast I had prepared. Clearing away the uneaten breakfast had become a part of my daily routine. With each morning of disposing of the untouched food, the sense of emptiness grew. I'm lonely. Before we were married, we had more time and could talk more. Now there's no meaningful conversation at home. I feel like a machine, mechanically carrying out household chores every day. Occasionally, Eric would spend a Sunday at home. That day, by chance, we had a day off together and ate breakfast together for the first time in a long while. It's rare for us to have a day off like this. "Why don't we go out? I found a cafe you might like." I'd rather relax at home on my day off. Think about it a little. No matter how cheerfully I spoke to him, Eric responded indifferently. Even after Eric finished his breakfast, he quickly moved to the living room. Still, it was better than the days when meals remained untouched. While I was hurrying to finish eating, the intercom rang early in the morning. Who could it be this early? It's only 8 a.m., I wondered suspiciously. Eric, who had been sluggish until then, quickly stood up and rushed to the entrance. I thought perhaps something we ordered had arrived, but when I saw who my husband had let in, my mouth dropped open in surprise. "Wow, Eric's house is really wonderful. Oh, Olivia, long time no see. Have you aged a bit? Are you tired?" It was Carrie, a junior from work, and her student-like manner of speaking caught my attention. "Why are you here?" "I came to celebrate Eric's marriage. I always wanted to do something for him since he's helped me so much. I knew you were coming today, but I didn't expect you this early in the morning." Eric, now seemingly a different person, laughed brightly, and I felt a bit irritated inside. If he knew she was coming, why hadn't he told me? What did that smile mean? Even if she was a junior, it wasn't pleasant to see my husband laughing with another woman. I managed to force a smile and prepared some tea. "You really didn't need to go through all this trouble." "Oh no, I just wanted to see Eric. By the way, your stomach looks a bit bigger. Are you expecting a child?" Carrie's smirk made the question sting. I wanted children. But how could we have any with no time as a couple? "It's just that I've gained a bit of weight. Kids are still a bit off in the future, I guess." "Hey, I can't imagine Eric being happy about that belly, but maybe you could lose a little weight if you tried hard enough." Carrie's words clearly contained malice. As I was about to address her insensitivity, she placed a large paper bag she had brought on the table. "Actually, I brought a gift today. Please accept this." As I hesitated, Eric quickly pulled something out of the paper bag, a tie. It was dark blue with some subtle embroidery, quite stylish. "I chose this item because it suits you perfectly, Eric. I know your tastes exactly." Carrie really understands me well. As a senior, it's a joy to have such a cute junior. Eric smiled contentedly. Even if she was a junior, wasn't their relationship too close? Considering the time of her visit, it was inappropriate, and Carrie's hidden hostility was a major stress for me. As I listened half-heartedly while feeling irritated, Eric tapped my shoulder and said, "I'll drop Carrie off, so I'm going out for a bit." "What? You didn't want to go out when I suggested it earlier. If you're going, I'm going too. Don't be silly. Who will do the housework if you go out?" He laughed, pointing at the dishes as if housework was solely my job. Angry and disappointed, I watched as Eric happily left the house with Carrie. What does this mean? Am I just some kind of housekeeper? My irritation showed no signs of settling. As I flipped the neglected calendar, I noticed summer was approaching. Next month would be my birthday. Would Eric remember it? I had believed he would handle such an occasion properly, but Eric had easily betrayed that expectation. This all happened within a week of Carrie's visit. By the way, I have a business trip out of the prefecture starting next week. I'm counting on you to take care of things at home as usual, Eric announced suddenly. Another sudden announcement. How long will it be this time? 2 months. It's long, but it's necessary for work. Eric frowned slightly in irritation, seeming displeased with my reaction. I'm the next president, after all. Work like this is always there. I can't deal with that kind of look. Sorry, but next month is... I trailed off, my words becoming muddled. Talking about my birthday seemed pointless. After all, work came first, so my wishes stood no chance. Afterwards, I said nothing. After Eric left for his solo assignment, I sent him emails during the day, and night times I thought he might be free. I assumed he would respond to simple messages, but replies came perhaps once a week, if at all. Most messages were marked as read, and that was the end. At most, I would get a single sticker in return. This was the same on my birthday. While my family and friends celebrated with calls and bright messages, my husband Eric said nothing. Even my father-in-law Colin made the effort to visit, but Eric didn't say a word. I finally had to tell him myself that it was my birthday. The only response was a sticker saying, "Okay." A wave of loneliness washed over me. What am I to Eric? I'm trying hard as a wife, but maybe it's all a misunderstanding. Feeling unable to bear these emotions alone any longer, I decided to have a serious talk about our future when Eric returned. On the day Eric came back, I waited for him in the living room. Then I saw him enter the house with another woman. It was Carrie. What is this? You just got back and you're doing this? Shocked, I confronted Eric and Carrie, but they boldly stated while laughing, "Today is the day we divorce. Get out of this house immediately." What do you mean, divorce? My heart was in turmoil over this unexpected turn of events. That's when Eric's mother, Sharon, appeared. I'm sorry, but Eric told me he deeply loves Carrie, and I can't abandon my son, she began. I had suspicions about Carrie and Eric before, but I never expected them to act so blatantly. As I watched speechless, the lover boldly sat down on the sofa. Eric pointed toward the entrance, suggesting I leave immediately. Now that I've returned from my solo assignment and nearly finished my work as the successor, I don't need a housekeeper anymore. I've decided to start a new life with the honest and beautiful Carrie. She's honest? You really have no eye for women. Don't blame the young and attractive Carrie. She is the one I truly love. Say no more. Eric criticized me as if I were the problem. A truly sincere person would never commit such betrayal. They laughed triumphantly. Facing the reality I had ignored, I reached my breaking point. I had wanted to find a resolution through discussion. However, if challenged this way, I saw no reason to hold back. I regained my composure and responded, "What? But this is my house, isn't it?" "What?" They still seemed to be mistakenly rejoicing, thinking they had the upper hand. They are greatly mistaken if they think they can be at ease forever. "This house is yours?" "Stop joking. This house was given to me by my father. I intend to change the ownership to my name soon. It's certainly not yours, Olivia." In that regard, the ownership has already been transferred to me. While saying this, I showed the skeptical Eric the property registry. Here is the property registry. It shows who the owner is. Eric hastily grabbed the document and scrutinized it. Then his expression gradually turned to confusion. Wait a minute. I don't understand. It really is in your name. What happened? You didn't forge the documents, did you? There's no need for such suspicion. I would never commit a crime. Why is the property in your name? Would my father really transfer it to you? Seeing Eric's agitation, I nodded in agreement as he said, Colin had officially transferred the house to me. Why would he do that for someone like you? Why isn't it obvious? Because you are unfaithful. Treat your wife as worthless and cheat. I placed a bulging brown envelope on the table. In addition to the previous documents, inside the envelope were numerous photos of Eric and Carrie holding hands intimately and entering a hotel together. I have had doubts about the relationship between you and Carrie for a long time. Your recent closeness seemed odd, so I hired an investigator. The fact that I could gather so much evidence in just a week was probably because Eric had been far too careless. He never suspected my plan, looking down on me as just a convenient housekeeper, which backfired on him. That can't be. Hiring a detective agency isn't cheap. You shouldn't have the money for that. I've been cutting down on living expenses to prevent fraud. Eric accidentally blurted out more than he intended. Indeed, Eric had kept his income a secret. The living expenses he provided were barely enough to cover our food. If used for household expenses, there would be almost nothing left for personal use. I don't recall buying anything for myself other than consumables after we got married. Meanwhile, he would stay out all night and squander money at nightclubs. I hadn't realized he was intentionally limiting the household budget, but it seemed that was the case. You really can only maintain yourself by belittling others. You probably thought I wouldn't hire anyone because of the lack of money. Who put you up to this? Who taught you such tactics? In anger, he tore up the evidence photos, but I had already backed them up. While watching his futile resistance, I continued the conversation. It was your father, Colin. If it weren't for him, I might have been crying and thrown out of the house by now. While Eric was away, I continued to battle loneliness. Many people sent me birthday wishes, but the hollow feeling in my heart remained unfilled. Engulfed in tears day and night, I hadn't noticed the sound at the entrance. Why are you crying on your birthday, Olivia? Eric is away, and the room seems dark, said Colin, who appeared saying this. He had planned a surprise for me and entered the house quietly, using his spare key. He placed a shopping bag filled with flashy decorations on the table and cared for me like a real father. Colin remembered my birthday when you completely neglected it, and he listened to me about your behavior. I told him everything about how I was being treated by you. Colin was furious, as if it were his own matter, and offered to cover the expenses for hiring a detective agency. Because of his support, I was able to request an investigation. To resort to such underhanded methods to tattle, if you disliked it, you should have come back earlier. I've heard that the business trip wasn't really for 2 months. Eric and Carrie were shaken by these words. Although Colin, the president, had ordered the business trip, it turned out that it was actually scheduled for only 1 month. I knew this month was your birthday, Olivia's, so I planned to make sure Eric could be with her on that day. Colin shook his head, puzzled that Eric had not yet returned. A few days earlier, I had received word that he had returned from his business trip and was attending work as usual. If he hasn't returned home yet, where could he be? Perhaps lying to be with another woman. I immediately suspected infidelity, and Carrie's face came to mind. As I had guessed, Eric had been happily spending time at her place for about a month. The evidence photos I submitted included images of them leaving Carrie's house. A spiteful and unattractive woman resorts to despicable actions. Without youth or beauty, you must manipulate others to survive, I suppose. Eric's veins bulged with anger, and Carrie also showed her indignation. They accused me of invasion of privacy, claiming it was illegal to take photos of their home. It's unfortunate that you feel used and discarded, but this reaction is excessive. I could sue you, you know. We are prepared for that. If you want to sue, go ahead. If you still feel like fighting in this situation, then good luck in court. Carrie was taken aback, lost for words, and hid behind Eric, pulling on his arm. Eric, do something. This ordinary woman is ruining my happiness. Don't panic. After all, she's an outsider. My father is a kind person, and if we explain the truth, he will surely support us. Moreover, my mother is also backing our marriage. Ignoring me, Eric quickly took out his phone. He was probably trying to call Colin. Too bad for you. Your tears might have influenced my father, but my words hold more weight as I hold a significant position in the company. Just watch silently as my father takes my side. Eric quickly dialed a number and put the phone to his ear. At that moment, a ringtone came from the room behind us. Hearing the tune, Eric's complexion changed. Isn't that my father's ringtone? Without waiting for my reply, the door to the back room swung open forcefully. From that door emerged a figure who looked sternly at Eric. I'm really disappointed. I was hoping the evidence photos were false. Wait, what's going on? Why is my father here? I invited him. I intended to have an important discussion with you once you returned. The plan was to settle matters of infidelity and divorce today. More importantly, I had asked Colin to secretly observe to better understand Eric's daily actions. I was prepared, but I didn't expect such impudence. How will you explain this? And I can't believe that Sharon would defend her son's infidelity. Well, this is... Eric's confidence vanished, and he became as meek as a frightened child in front of his father. The mother-in-law appeared tense as well. Wait, Olivia is only saying things that suit her? She just spaces out at home and it's getting worse. Her housekeeping is so sloppy it makes me not want to come home. If anyone had a husband like that, they would be stressed and exhausted. I never felt that the housekeeping was sloppy. On the contrary, it's always been meticulously done, and I'm quite impressed. I've never heard Eric express gratitude for the housekeeping. I've always been treated as if it was just expected of me, so Colin's kind words really touched me. I've been enduring it all this time. I thought I was working hard for our future, and you won't even apologize. Now what? Why should I apologize? This whole situation is your fault. Our home has been taken over. Olivia is the one who should be apologizing. Eric's anger intensified as he felt cornered. Frightened, I naturally moved closer to Colin. I'm going to be the future president. I'm destined for an important position. A woman like you, who fusses over trivial matters, is nothing but a nuisance. How can you say that? We once loved each other. How can you say such horrible things? Loved? Don't make me laugh, Eric coldly replied, pulling Carrie closer to show off. I don't remember ever loving someone like you. I just thought flattering you would be useful. You're nothing more than an unpaid housekeeper. Despite knowing it was a poor excuse, Eric gave a bitter smile. Unaware of this, Carrie believed she was genuinely doing well and smiled broadly. It's over. I'll give you this house and everything in it. Such a small house. I can easily acquire more if I work seriously. As the future president, I deserve a wealthier life. What are you talking about? There's no way you can become the future president. As Eric blustered, Colin sighed deeply and said, I knew that. Colin was already considering firing Eric. Despite this, as a parent, Colin told me that if Eric showed any remorse, there might be some room for leniency. However, given the current situation, that seemed unlikely. Colin shook his head with a weary voice. Eric, this is the end for you. You no longer need to come to the company. The same goes for Carrie. The turmoil you two have caused within the company and the pain you've brought to our home, it's unbearable. And Sharon, I can't take it anymore. We need to consider a divorce. A large hand soothingly stroked my back. I felt a genuine warmth from Colin's kindness. Damn it. Do what you want. I will live for true love with Carrie. I want nothing to do with any of you anymore. As the two tried to leave, I quickly stopped them. There was still an important issue that needed to be resolved. Wait, I will claim division of property through a lawyer. Don't try to escape. And Carrie, this applies to you too. Huh? I don't have any money. I can't pay. I don't care. You must find a way to pay. What you've done deserves it. When I glared at her sternly, Carrie was silent for a moment before muttering in a low voice, "This is the worst. If I knew it would end like this, I never would have gotten involved with Eric." Eric argued back at her. "What? Why would you say that? If there's love, none of this should be a problem," she retorted. "With that love, will you earn it for me?" "I don't need a man who has no money." Revealing her true intentions were focused on financial value. Eric was left behind, meekly following the younger woman he had claimed to love. Was that truly the love he sought? I couldn't imagine such a relationship lasting long. "Are you okay? You seem very tired. You should rest," Colin said with concern. "Thank you. I'm really sorry for having you take on such an unpleasant role, and considering what's happening with your wife, I truly feel sorry," I replied, filled with remorse. Colin, while stroking his chin thoughtfully, shifted his gaze to me and said, "It's reassuring to know you rely on me, but I'm also contemplating what to do about the successor issue. How are your job prospects looking, Olivia?" he asked. "I haven't decided on anything concrete yet. I plan to start looking for a job once things settle down a bit," I responded. "In that case, how about working here again? We're short-handed since 2 employees have left," Colin suggested. I was surprised by his unexpected proposal, but Colin nodded with a warm smile, making me feel truly appreciated. A person of your integrity would be highly valued anywhere. Think of this as a kind of scouting. "What do you think?" he asked, and I nodded repeatedly, my eyes welling up with tears. Being rejected so many times by Eric had been painful. Even after I had stood up to him, I hadn't found the energy to take the next step forward. However, knowing that someone valued my efforts made me eager to respond with all my energy. "I'm still inexperienced, but I look forward to working with you," I answered with renewed resolve. After overcoming many hardships, I was ready to step through a new door in my life. 6 months later, I returned to the workplace as Colin's secretary. The knowledge from the secretarial studies I had undertaken, thinking it might be useful when Eric was appointed president, proved to be very beneficial. Now, my salary had increased, and both my work and personal life were more fulfilling than ever. One day during lunchtime, I received an unexpected call from a familiar number. "Eric?" "Why are you calling now?" I answered, surprised. I hadn't seen Eric since our emotional and harsh breakup. The divorce had already been finalized, and I had claimed $50,000 in property division from him. His current lifestyle and how much he struggled with monthly payments were no longer my concern. So when the call came out of the blue, I felt a bit perplexed to hear his voice. After trying to ignore the call a few times, the persistent ringing of my smartphone eventually got to me, and I answered. "I'm actually on a break at work right now, but what do you need?" I asked in a somewhat exasperated tone. "You finally picked up—" "Help me, Olivia." On the other end of the phone, Eric's voice trembled as if he was frightened by something. I maintained my composure, trying to halt his disheveled story temporarily. "I don't understand what's happened. But why should I help you? Aren't you supposed to be with your beautiful and wonderful wife, confirming your true love?" I questioned. "There is no such thing as true love. Carrie was really the worst." Eric's voice was a mix of regret and anger. He began to divulge what had happened since our divorce. After losing all his assets, Eric was living in a small apartment with Carrie. Despite his wounded pride, he worked multiple part-time jobs to support their living. But his efforts were in vain, as Carrie completely trampled over him. She was seeing several other men, and now wants to leave me because I am poor, Eric explained in a pained voice. Carrie's attraction to him had been not for his personality, but for his anticipated position as the future president. Once he lost that position, he also lost his value to Carrie, and she promptly abandoned him. Despite having gone into debt to buy Carrie a car, she had disappeared with it. Now he was being chased by debt collectors, living his absolute worst days. As Eric confided, his voice was laden with clear despair, and even over the phone, his dejection was palpable. Isn't this situation something that didn't just start now? Have you really been completely unaware up until now? I asked, confused. He replied, "What do you mean? Did you know something about Carrie's affairs?" While I hesitated to confuse him further, I had known about some of her actions from when I had his behavior investigated. The detective had recorded other men visiting her house during that investigation. In fact, I had never shown Eric the evidence of photos of these visits. I had only shown him evidence of his own dishonesty. Since it wasn't the information I needed, I didn't particularly care about it, I explained calmly. If you had told me that information from the beginning, I wouldn't have ended up in this situation, Eric said angrily, but then took a deep breath and suddenly changed to a gentler tone. Actually, I really need a wise woman like you, Olivia. You must be lonely too, right? Why don't we start over? He suggested. His sweet words sent a chill down my spine. Unfortunately, my life, both work and personal, is quite fulfilling now. Honestly, even if I had the time, starting a new relationship with you again would be impossible, I firmly stated. Desperate, he pleaded. Then could you at least lend me some money? If the debt collectors find me, I can't even begin to imagine what terrible things might happen. Despite his plea, I coldly ended the call in the middle and added his number to the blocked list. What happens to Eric from here on is no longer my concern. Considering the difficult situation Carrie will likely face, I can only think that she brought this upon herself. Carrie always seems to be good at catching disreputable men, I muttered to myself unintentionally. According to the investigation report on her affairs, her lovers were uniformly a group of no-goods, all settled with debt among them. Eric was just a small fry in this troubling mix. I vowed to myself, I will never choose such a path. I will live my life seriously and diligently. I also want to show my gratitude to Colin properly. That was the last time I heard from Eric. A few days later, I received a call from the lawyer informing me that Eric had paid the property division in full. Surprisingly, the funds he used came from a shady lender, and due to this, he was being forced into harsh labor to repay his debt. He was working long hours from morning till late at night, juggling multiple part-time jobs to support himself. This grueling lifestyle was taking a toll on his health. Just imagining his prematurely aged appearance was heartbreaking. According to what I heard, he still lives nearby, but he has changed so much that even if I saw him on the street by chance, I probably wouldn't recognize him. As for Carrie, her situation hasn't changed. She is still struggling to pay off her debts. Just as I had anticipated, she was deceived by her former lovers and now has no choice but to work in the nightlife industry. Carrie used to play a game of ensnaring men and then abandoning them, but now she is being exploited by another man and works nightly to meet his demands. Once young and attractive, she now suffers from sleep deprivation, which has diminished her beauty. Her skin has become rough, and frequent drinking has made her voice hoarse. I can't help but feel pity for her drastic transformation. Seeing how far she has fallen and her miserable state pains me. It illustrates how much a person can change. On Colin's side, after his divorce from Sharon was finalized, she has been living a modest yet lonely life. As for myself, I continue to work as Colin's secretary and am by his side. He has started to discuss the future of the business and the possibility of considering a successor soon. Someone trustworthy like you, Olivia, could confidently be entrusted with this company, Colin often says. I reply, I am flattered by your words, but I am still a novice and would like to continue learning a lot from you, Colin. While I may still lack experience and knowledge, I strongly aspire to one day confidently take over this company and further develop the achievements Colin has built. I believe this is the greatest way I can express my gratitude to Colin.